iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.
Hi, this is S.J. Arniger for iHeartRadio Broadway, and today I have the distinct honor of speaking with the First Lady of British Musical Theatre, Elaine Paige. Elaine, welcome, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Pleasure. Nice to see you. Thanks for having me.
So my first question is, how are you doing with all of this right now?
Well, I'm kind of getting used to it. I'm in my 9th week of isolation. I must say, I mean, I know I'm in a very fortunate position in that, I'm living in a nice apartment here overlooking the park in London. And, but what I am enjoying is the fact that I'm not trying to pack everything into my day. I'm not running around as I normally am, trying to do too many things. And so there's less pressure. There's no deadlines. I'm enjoying that. And I'm enjoying just sort of taking things at a slower pace and taking my time over everything. My shoulders are down and, I'm feeling pretty relaxed about it. And I'm doing lots of things that I wouldn't normally do, like possibly I'm reading a lot more. I would never think I've got time to sit down and read a book, which of course is what I'm doing now. I'm enjoying that very much. I'm enjoying cooking a lot more than I normally have time for. I've even got the paints out and how to go at some painting. So all these creative things, as well as sort of learning how to Zoom and do things on the computer, I've managed to self-tape and do a few tweets and so on and so forth. I'm finding it creatively quite stimulating and as I say, just enjoying the simple pleasures, being able to, what do they say, stop and smell the roses.
So one of the reasons why we're talking today is this Friday, The Shows Must Go On will be premiering the original film version of Cats to be streamed online at 7 p.m. So basically, what does it mean to you as a performer that someone like Andrew Lloyd Webber is making all of this content available during this global crisis right now?
Well, I think it's absolutely wonderful. And he's not alone in it either. I mean, the National Theatre here are doing the same thing. They're streaming lots of plays and musicals and works that they have recorded. The English National Ballet are doing the same. The Royal Opera House are doing the same. And of course, Andrew is doing it as well with musical theatre. And I think it's fantastic that that everybody has kind of thought, let's do this. Let's give the public something to watch. And I mean, it's just amazing. And it's wonderful because you can set your time. You've got 48 hours to be able to hook into this, and I think it's the right thing to do. I think it's fantastic that they've come up with the idea, and since we've got all this digital doodah to be able to entertain ourselves, I mean, why not? We've all got plenty of time, haven't we? Let's face it.
Exactly. So I was going through kind of a rabbit hole of past interviews that you've done, and I was listening to an interview that you were giving talking about how you became attached to Cats. Can you kind of go through how you became a part of the company of Cats?
Well, it was an extraordinary story. It is an extraordinary story. It's a true story. I was driving home from a dinner party one night in my car, and on the radio, it must have been just before midnight, because I remember clearly the DJ saying, "I will play the whole of Andrew Lloyd Webber's new tune from his new musical Cats after the midnight news." And I thought, my goodness, I'd heard just a fragment of it, but it grabbed me right away. It just sort of touched me somehow. I arrived at my house almost immediately, jumped out of the car, ran to my front door, fiddling around in my coat pocket for my keys. And as I look down, I see this bedraggled, mangy-looking old black cat staggering towards me. And my mother had always told me that if a black cat crossed your path, it would bring you good luck. So I was trying to usher this cat across my legs so that it would have crossed my path before entering the house, which I managed to do eventually. And I dashed into the house, set the tape recorder running and set it up and recorded the song. And when I looked back, I'd left the door open and the cat had sort of followed me in, and it really was really rather pathetic. So I decided to give it a saucer of milk. And as I say, it was late. It was midnight because the DJ said he was going to play it after midnight news. So anyway, we both go off to bed, I should say, the cat as well, needless to say, stayed the night. And I'm playing this tune over and over on my Sony Walkman. And I made a decision that night. I was going to ring Andrew the next day and say, look, I know I'm nothing to do with the production. They were about to open any minute. They had about another 5 days or something before they opened their first preview. And I was going to say to him, look, I know I'm nothing to do with it, but please, I was going to beg him if necessary to let me record the song. And I didn't have to ring him to do that, because the next morning my phone rang and I was running down the stairs to answer the phone. It was Cameron McIntosh, the producer, telling me that Judi Dench had injured herself, wouldn't be able to make it back to play the role, and would I consider coming down to talk to Trevor Nunn, Andrew and himself and Gillian Lynn about the possibility of taking over the role at very short notice. And I remember clearly Cameron saying to me, the thing is, Elaine, he said, it's not like Evita, because I literally just finished in Evita a few months prior. I was waiting for something to, come along. And he said, it's not like Evita. It's not a leading role in the sense that you only have one song to sing. And I said, oh, right. I said, it wouldn't be called Memory by any chance, would it? And he said, yes. He said, that's it. But that is the only song you've got. That's the only song. I thought, well, as you know, the rest is history. And that's how I became involved in playing Grisabella in the show. And just as a footnote to the story of the cat that I discovered that night before, which I always think is an omen. I mean, it just is too spooky for words. She lived with me for the rest of her life. And of course, I called her Grisabella.
I will say, I also had a black cat come across my doorstep as a child, and had that cat for 17 years. And she was the best thing in the whole entire world. And I absolutely agree that black cats bring absolute luck into our lives.
I agree. Well, I mean, I just thought the whole thing was uncanny to have encountered this animal that clearly was in distress and bedraggled and needed a good, meal. Moth-eaten. I mean, she was everything that Grisabella was. And then they rang me the next day, offering me basically to come and help them out with this role. Would I take over the role? And it was exactly the cat that I had encountered. And there I was enacting her life on the stage thereafter. So I always thought it was, a bit spooky. I mean, yeah. And I just think in a way it was serendipity. It was as if it was meant to be. Absolutely.
And looking back, what did playing Grisabella mean to you in your career?
Well, of course, it was fantastic because I had just come off the back of playing Evita. And I had taken a bit of a rest because I was pretty exhausted after playing that role for nearly 2 years. And I was waiting for the right thing to come along, I must admit, I remember Hal Prince saying to me, don't be too ready to leave Evita because this is a fantastic role for you. And, these kind of roles don't come along 10 a penny, they don't come along that often. You might never get another one as good as this. So don't be in a hurry to let this go. And but as I say, after 2 years, I just thought I can't do it anymore. I was just so exhausted, and I was waiting for something. And of course, I was offered every dictator's wife known to man after Evita, and then this literally fell in my lap. So in a way, it kind of consolidated, I suppose you could say, for me, because I had a personal. Not only was the show fantastic anyway, because it's innovative and nobody had ever seen anything like it before in 1981. And, but for me personally, it was a success, a huge success because of that fantastic song, which is, we all know it's sort of another great tragedy and kind of role. Although be it a cat, but I mean, and the song is, that climactic, operatic sensibilities to it. So it was a personal success for me, and I'm glad to say that it came along. You know, it did really fall in my lap, because without it, I don't know. I mean, who knows? But it was a big success. As you know, it ran here, that original production ran for 21 years here in London before Les Mis took over. And then, of course, I handed over my cat coat to Les Mis, so as in passing on the baton, as it were. So it was major for me.
And now that The Show Must Go On is airing it starting on Friday for 48 hours, this filmed version will be available to a new generation to be able to witness this production. What does that mean to you as a performer?
Well, you know, obviously I'm slightly biased because, you know, if you weigh this one up with a new film, they're completely and utterly different, in the sense of the fact that this film that is out this weekend is filmed in a theatre. So it's where the piece originated. It's where it belongs, I think, really, because you do have to use your imagination. Obviously, we're human beings, we're not cats. Although in the theatre, because of the choreography and the way it was staged on that wonderful design, that set design of John Napier's was a masterstroke, really. To have all the car tire and the boot of the car and all the rubbish dump, it was all in the right proportions. The set design was the right proportions, intermingled with us as human beings pretending to be cats. And even though we were, you know, we had those wonderful suits on and the wigs and everything and the gloves and tails and the whole thing, the choreography was such that, you know, we did study cat movements and everything. There were a lot of cats, sort of references to cat movement in the choreography. It all seems to work to me together as a whole unit, a whole piece. And it's kind of, you know, because you're in a theatre, you can let your imagination run and believe that you're in the world of this rubbish dump with these cats. Whereas with the new film, it's all the proportions are completely out of sync. You know, and they've got hands, you know. Well, you can't have a hand if you're meant to be a cat. You know, if you're meant to be a cat, you've got to be on all fours and try and mimic cat movements. Whereas in the modern film, they're all upright, as human beings do, walk about, yes, we know that, and with hands and rings on their fingers, and, you know, and they're in Trafalgar Square where Nelson's column goes on forever. All the proportions and everything, the whole design, I think, the design element of it was a disaster in that sense. So for me, this is, if you can't see it in a theatre, which obviously is the best place to see it because you are in amongst them all, the cats, but if you can't see it in the theatre, then I think this version that was filmed in 1997 in the Adelphi Theatre here in London is probably your best bet, because it conjures up the same kind of experience that you would have in a live theatre.
And this cast that's in this film production is wonderful. I know Jacob Brent, and the cast that is in this film version is absolutely wonderful. So I implore everyone to watch this for the 48 hours. It's up on the Show Must Go On.
So John Mills was asked to come and play old Gus, the old theatre cat. And of course he was pretty old by the time he got to play this role. And it's magical, it's heartbreaking. His wonderful rendition, of course. I mean, Ian McKellen, of course, as well, is a wonderful performance. But there's something very touching about Sir John Mills's rendition. And of course, as you rightly say, that they garnered the cast from lots of different productions from all over the world. So it's a pretty special company one's keeping, yeah.
And moving away from cats, your career is just incredible, and I'm in such awe of you as a performer. Between your stage work and your recordings, is there one thing in your career that you're the most proud of?
My goodness me, I've been so lucky, you know. I mean, it's difficult to choose because each show that I've done, I've had some kind of empathy with, you know. I never would do anything if I didn't really love the idea of playing the role and thought I could invest in it in some way. I think Evita will always stand out to me because that was what seemed to be like the casting of Gone with the Wind. I mean, they looked everywhere, all over the world for people. And prior to that, prior to me getting Evita, you know, I'd always get down to the last 2 or 3 people, and then I'd get the big elbow, the big heave ho. And my father used to say to me, "Oh no, talent will out," and all of this, try and bolster me up, because you know, you have to be pretty resilient to take the knocks and blows. And I always felt that my height always went against me to some degree, because I'm quite short. I'm only 4'11". And so Evita comes along, and I thank the Lord, you know, that she was only 5'2". So you know, at last there was a role that I could play that I was the right height for, as well as everything else. And it was a stunning character to play, and wonderful score to sing. Great lyric writing. I mean, the whole package. It was everything. It was that Cinderella story, really, wasn't it? It had everything in it. So I think that one will always stand out to me, because not only because it was everything I just said, but it was also the first one, and it kind of gave me a career, really. I have to be honest, admit that had that not happened, I might well not be talking to you, because that was the one that gave me a platform to be able to then create some of these other fantastic roles in Cats and in Chess and Piaf, and eventually get to play Broadway 10 shows and 18 years down the line in Norma Desmond in Sunset Boulevard, because I didn't get there with Evita, I didn't get to Broadway with Cats, and I didn't get there with Chess either. It seemed as if I was never going to be able to play Broadway. And even though it was a role that I had taken over, it was again like Evita in a way. It was a wonderful, tragic role to play with another fantastic Angela Weber score.
And my last question, with Broadway being shut down right now, the West End being shut down, but also with performers in schools across the world not being able to perform, what advice do you have for students right now as we all take a pause before they get back up and running?
Well, first thing is, don't panic. We will get back eventually. I mean, it's going to take time, but we will. I think, you know, sometimes what I've been thinking about this downtime, and about the fact that you're not running around, rushing around and everything, it gives you pause for thought, and to think about yourself and your creativity and your own ability as well. And I think, you know, for example, I'm trying to put together some anecdotes of some things in my life over my career and so on, people I've met, places I've been, no, you know what I mean. Anyway, so, you know, I think it gives you an opportunity to kind of think, well, what could I do that's creative, and that I can find out about yourself, and you can do your own classes, you know, you can read aloud. I came across a poetry book the other day when I was literally dusting, I was cleaning, and this poetry book fell out on me, and an Indian poet, and somebody that I have to admit, I don't sit down reading poetry books ever, probably. And so there I was for once, and I opened the poetry book, and I sat down for a good hour, maybe longer, reading the poems, both to myself and out loud, and it was just so wonderful to be able to do that. So you've got the time now, I think, to discover things about yourself as an artist, and also to find out things like poets, read things that read authors, read plays. There's so much a wealth of material, isn't there, both online and probably on your bookshelves, that you don't normally get around to actually dipping your toe into. And I think that's what I would say, is to use this quiet time, this downtime, to fill up the cup again, you know, to re-inspire yourself with great writing, great films to watch, and wonderful actors to watch on old movies and stuff. I mean, you can learn so much from watching others and from reading.
Elaine, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today. Again, you can see Cats on the Shows Must Go On, their YouTube channel, this Friday at 7 p.m. And please go watch it because it's such a phenomenal, phenomenal original filmed stage version. So Elaine, again, thank you so much.
Okay, thanks so much. Thank you. Bye. Stay safe.
Thank you. You as well.
iHeartRadio Broadway, driven by Mercedes-Benz. The best or nothing.